Alright, welcome back. This is a review for Fruits Basket 2019, episode 24. Oh boy, we have this episode. Okay, so, and it's finally, we can talk about the true form arc. It's such a good episode, and I'm so happy that this episode finally got done right. Oh, so happy, so happy. Alright, so, before I go any further, I'll tell you this. I'm going to split this episode. Well, it's going to be this, obviously, one video, but I have a couple different things I want to discuss. So, first of all, I'm going to. This is probably going to be a long video. But, two, first, I'm going to talk about the actual 2019 episode. And then I'm going to go back and talk about the equivalent episodes / the ending to the original series. And then that's kind of the main split, and then probably a little bit of commentary in between there. Okay, but I'm just so happy that this episode is done right. So happy. All right. So we start off the episode with the introduction of well, we actually start off with a little back flash to when Kiyo was a child and he's at his mother's wake, and he's hearing the whispers of the adults saying, "Oh, it's a suicide," and that he's at fault for it, and that that's what happens when you have a child that's cursed by the cat, and he's getting upset. And then Kazuma shows up and is like, "Hey, listen, I understand. It's okay. It's not your fault. It's okay." And then he asks him, "Hey, do you want to come live with me?" And we'll get more on that in this coming in the final episode for this season. We should be getting more on that. But this episode, after the opening, it skips open, and we're properly introduced to Kazuma Soma, who is Kiyo's master, and he's also the martial arts master that taught like Haru and Yuki and even Kagura. And everyone's kind of saying hello except for Kiyo, and then Kiyo goes up to his room, and everyone's like, yeah, he's just kind of being shy. He doesn't want to show Yuki and everyone else how he actually feels. They go up, Kazuma ends up going up into Kiyo's room, and Kiyo is pretty much just overjoyed to see Kazuma. He's so happy, and he's like a little kid again. They get to talking, and Kiyo's like, "Oh, hey, like, now that you're back from your training, am I actually going to be going back to live at the dojo with you, like you promised? You said, like you promised you would." And Kazuma's like, "Well, actually, no. I think it's better for you to stay here." And then Kiyo's like, "Well, what are you going back on your promise? You said you would let me go. I don't like it here. I can't stand it here. It feels like I'm in a lukewarm bath, and and it's I'm getting all pruny. I'm kind of suffocating here. I don't like being here." And Kazuma was like, "Well," he thinks to himself, "That's not it. That's not why you're feeling this way." You skip forward, and you kind of get this little conversation. You get to overhear a conversation between Kazuma and Shigure. And Kazuma's telling him, "I'm going to remove it. I'm going to take away what turns out to his beads, his little bracelet." And Shigure's like, "Are you sure you want to do this? This could cause a lot of damage. He could not recover from it." And he says, "Well, based on, I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to push him to see if he's actually ready for this, because based on what I see, how he's interacting with Toru, he's gonna wind up getting himself hurt again in the long run, because he's gonna try to run away from telling her the truth about in this case the cat's true form. So I need to push him to accept who he really is now, and then including Toru, and I know that might hurt him in the end, but it's really the only choice I have." And even Shigure thinks to himself, "Well, it looks like you're entrusting everything to this girl as well, just like innocence, like how Shigure is." Kazuma tells Toru, "Oh, hey, come out and meet me this evening." And then we skip to Kiyo and Kazuma standing outside on pretty much the front lawn area. And as they're talking, of course, it starts to rain. But Kazuma confronts Kiyo and says, "Have you accepted your true form yet?" And Kiyo's like, "Of course I've accepted it. Of course I have, and I've accepted that my life was already over before it began, and it's all that rat's fault." And Kazuma's like, "No, it isn't. Are you going to continue living your life running away from things? Are you going to continue to live your life pretending like, everything is Yuki's fault, and pretending to, again, run away from all your issues and pretty much live alone for the rest of your life? Are you really prepared for that? Are you really going to continue doing that?" He says, I don't think you should. I really think that the lukewarm bath that you've said was making you uncomfortable is actually something that's been giving you comfort, and that you're scared to lose it. You're scared to once again lose something in which you've found comfort in, and you don't want to lose it. And so, but I'm going to force you from running away. I'm going to take away the thing in which you've been hiding, and so I'm going to force you to open up, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if you continue to run away or if you will actually open up. And of course, Toru appears right then, and Kiyo realizes that Toru is there at this point, and that's when Kazuma removes the beads. And then that's when Kiyo transforms into the cat's true form, which is this. It obviously looks kind of like a monster. It's kind of funny. Some people say it kind of looks like a Pokemon, which I guess in some way it does, but it's definitely more of a monstrous look. And of course, it's also supposed to smell pretty much like death, just about. He says, "Don't look at me," but he transforms, and then of course Toru sees him. He runs away after the transformation, and Toru follows after him pretty much. And of course we get to see that it wasn't just Toru and Kazuma that was out there that saw it. You get to see that Yuki and Kagura, and I think even a little bit of Shigure, that they all also saw the transformation as well. That's kind of important to when I get into comparison stuff. Well, this next all coming part is important. Anyway, so Toru chases after Kiyo, but then she winds up tripping on a tree root, and she throws up, and just because of the smell and just how bad it was. But then she thinks to herself that, is that really Kiyo? That's a form I've never seen before. It's a smell I've never smelled before. It's absolutely horrible. She says, "I don't know what the right thing to do is, but regardless," and then she runs off and continues to chase him. We get some little flashbacks of, sprinkled in throughout this, we get some little flashbacks of Kiyo interacting with his mother, who basically he felt that, I wouldn't say that he felt that his mother didn't love him, but it's just that he felt that she kind of used love in order to hide the fact that she was afraid of him without ever actually admitting that she was afraid of him. And so that's pretty kind of because of that, he never really felt like his mother truly accepted him. And then of course we also get to see a scene where Akito had removed Kiyo's beads at one point and saw the cat's true form as well. And then Toru shows up, and he tells her to go away and slashes at her, and then probably I'm just gonna go ahead and mention this now before I go any further. So he slashes at her, and that is in the manga, him slashing and injuring her. What isn't in the manga is her flying off into a pond. Like, I'd imagine with how strong he is in that form that, yeah, he probably would shove her back with the motion of the scratch. But, like, I don't think throwing her, that was definitely a little bit of added drama right there. But the scratch is real. So it's almost, I don't know, it's kind of a halfway comedic moment during that scene. Anyway, so Toru gets up and he tells her, go away, leave me alone, I don't want to see you. And of course he's thinking to himself as he's saying this, I know she's probably going to hate me anyway, so I might as well just hurt her as much as I can, and whether that's both physically and emotionally, hurt her, say horrible things to her, and in this case scratch or hurt her so that she will stay away from me, so that she will run away. If she's gonna leave me anyway, I might as well at least make it so that I don't feel bad about it entirely, that it isn't just she doesn't like my true form, that it is something because she doesn't want to be around me because of what I personally did to her. So Toru starts leaving, and then you get one of the best parts about this episode, and I'm so happy it's in there, is she stops and she turns around and she has this super determined, she has conviction written all over her face. She's super determined. She turns back around and grabs back on the Kiyo, and he's telling her, no, go away, don't you understand? She goes, no, I don't understand, I don't get it, I don't know what's going on, but I'm scared, and I want you to come back with me. I don't know what to think about this, I don't know what to do, I'm just scared, and all I know is that I want you to come back with him. Because as she thinks to herself, because if I don't do something now, if I don't bring him back now and do something, he's probably never going to come back to Shigure's house ever. And so she pretty much tells him what she thinks of him. She says, listen, I'm scared of you, but I want to continue to be, I want to continue to be together. I want to eat our meals together. I want to study together. I want to continue to live together. Don't go away. I really care for you, Kiyo. Don't go away. And I'm scared of you, but I don't want to leave you. I want to work with you. I want to be with you and work things out with you. And it's such an amazing moment. I'm so happy that got animated properly. And I'll get into that in a minute. And so Kiyo turns back to normal. And he says pretty much that, not only to her, but he also says it's about his mom, that, he wishes that his mom she didn't have to love everything about him, but she could have at least acknowledged his true form, and that instead of just trying to hide it away and pretend like it wasn't there. And he says, that he thinks to himself, it's always been kind of a selfish wish to think that someone would actually not only accept me as a person and me as a zodiac, but actually also accept me in my true form, and not in the way of, they accept it, but they're not really thinking about like the way his mom did, but more of in the realm of you are legitimately scared, and you admitted to me that you're scared of my true form. And that's pretty much what he had always wanted to hear, what he wished to hear, but he never thought he would actually hear it. And then we get the amazing moment of he reaches over and he pretty much gives her a hug. And now I'm going to be honest, it took me a very long time, because I read this series a lot and I watched the original anime a lot, and I had never noticed it until actually someone pointed it out to me. Well, not to me in person, but someone pointed it out online, and I was like, oh yeah, that is true. Is that up until this point where Kiyo hugs Toru at this point and says her name, he had never up until this point actually said her name. He never called her Honda. He never called her Toru. He always, when referring to her, he would say her or she, or when talking to her, he would say, hey, you, or just you. He would never actually call her by her name. But this instant is the first time that he actually calls her name. He actually says her name, and it's like, yes, it's so good. And then, of course, he transforms back into a cat, and he's kind of like, I know I shouldn't be near you, I know I shouldn't want to be around you, but I can't help but wanting, this is what he's thinking to himself, but I can't help it, the more I want to stay away from you, I know I should stay away from you, I know I shouldn't be interacting with you, but at the same time, I kind of wish I want to more, I want to be around you more, I want to you know, live together with you more and interact and stuff with you more. And they go back home, obviously, and then that's basically the end of the that's basically the end of the episode. Um, and it's such a good episode. And I love it so much. It is, again, it is like, I'm so glad it finally got it. It finally got animated correctly. Finally. Because the 2001 version, oh, the original version, it has some issues, to say the least. And so I'm going to try to keep it brief, because I could go into, like, detail about it. I'm going to try to keep it brief, so that way it's not all over the place and crazy and whatnot. So I'll point out that the episode pacing is a little bit different compared, obviously, from the 2019 from the original one. Because in the original, obviously, with the previous episode being the first half being Toru gets sick and the second half being the introductory to the true full arc with Kazuma showing up. That's obviously the 2019 version, but in the 2001 version, the Toru gets sick was its own episode, and then episode 24 of the original, the first half was the whole thing with Kagura and then Kazuma showing up at the end, and at the end of episode 24 of the original, Kiyo's beads get removed. And so, but for the most part, that entirety of the episode, again, that entirety of the episode was pretty much exactly the same as it was in the manga, and even here. It's 25 and 26 that really is where the issues come in. Okay, so I'm gonna try to keep this as short as possible, because it can get a little bit, it's really crazy. Okay, so the episode 25 of the original starts out pretty much exactly like the manga does, as well as the 2019 series, but then it pretty quickly diverges, in particularly after Toru trips over the tree root and then starts throwing up. So instead of, like in the 2019 version of manga, where she eventually gets up and chases after Kiyo again, in the original series, instead, Akito shows up and instead of, Akito doesn't actually, like, physically hurt Toru or does anything, but Akito does, like, pretty much verbally throws mud at Toru and saying stuff like, oh, you can't, this is what you get, this is what you deserve, I'm gonna make you suffer just as much as we suffer, and all these, just kind of trying to throw mud at Toru and is trying to get her down as much as possible. And then Shigure, I said that word. Shigure shows up, and Akito winds up leaving. And then pretty much Shigure apologizes to Toru and then starts begging her to chase after Kiyo. And then it switches over to Kagura talking to Yuki, saying that Toru is the only one that can, as much as she loves Kiyo, she can't be the one to help him. Toru is the only one that can help him right now. And then Yuki just leaves and runs out of the house. They have a little bit of Kiyo's backstory with, going back. They do this throughout kind of both the 25 and 26 for the original series, where they'll show little portions of Kiyo's backstory with his mom, and then the whole Akito thing, taking off the beads when he was a kid. But then the other thing that they show, which I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's another flashback, but it's another character's flashback, which we should actually be getting next episode, so I'm not going to go into that. Anyway, so then having it shows that flashback, it jumps back over to Toru, who after having Shigure beg her to go to Kiyo, she left, and instead she winds up running over to her mother's grave, where she winds up being found by Uo and Hana. And Uo, like, the entire time just wants to comfort Toru, but Hana, like, refuses to let Uo do that, and not only just, like, verbally says, you can't comfort Toru, but she physically, like, is pushing Uo away, saying, no, you can't comfort Toru. And all the while also telling Toru that she doesn't know what it is that she has to do, but that Toru has to go and do something, whatever that is, but Toru has to do it. And then Toru finally gets up and leaves her mother's grave, and that's how episode 25 of the original series ends. Um, and then episode 26, the final episode of the original series, it again kind of starts with the Kiyo flashback of his mom, um, as well as some other little flashbacks here and there. Um, and then Toru finally shows up to confront Kiyo, except for she's just like, she has like the deadpan eyes, and she's kind of like depressed looking, and she doesn't really do anything. And then all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, just Yuki shows up, and like Kiyo tries to run away, but then Yuki like grabs him, and winds up getting scratched by Kiyo. And he's like, no, I'm tired of running away. I don't want to do this anymore, or whatever. And then Yuki winds up having to tell. Yuki winds up telling Toru, hey, you got to tell Kiyo what you think about him, what you're feeling about him right now. Just do it. And that's, again, all these things are important to note. And then Toru does finally kind of snap out of her little depression, whatever was going through, and she basically gives the same speech that she does in the manga and in the 2019 version. However, the way it comes across is it's a lot more meek, a lot more, I don't know, it doesn't really come off the way, she says it very calmly, very slowly, very meekly, like it's almost very sorrowfully. Instead of the way that she says it in the manga in 2019 version, where she's like really desperate and pleading, and like has a lot of conviction in what she's saying, trying to convince Kiyo to not go away and to come back home. But anyway, so pretty much the same stuff happens at that point, except for Yuki's just there in the background the entire time. And then they go back home, and then this is where it really departs from the original series, departs even from the manga. So I'm going to tell you what happens, but just note that none of this actually happens in the manga, nor is it foreshadowing anything that happens in the manga, or spoiling anything that happens in the manga, nor is it like, none of what I'm about to tell you actually happens in the manga, nor is there reasons for anything that actually happens later on in the manga. So, they get back home, and maybe it's like a day or so later, and Toru just tells Shigure that she wants to meet Akito. So, Toru and Akito meet, and Yuki and Hattori and Shigure are there, and Kiyo's there too, but he can't like come in, so he's like outside on the wall walking around or something like that. And while Toru is meeting with Akito, she finds out that Akito acts the way he does because he bears like the full brunt of the Zodiac curse, and that it will make him die young. And it was already decided that way, and no one ever just asked him how he felt about it. And so that's the anime origin. And then Akito just kind of lets Toru go back home to Shigure's house, and this episode / the original series ends. And so it's like, yeah, the original series just kind of gave a complete anime-only ending to the series, trying to come up with some reason for why Akito acts the way Akito does, and really was just trying to, in my opinion, just try to add as many... They tried to, like, resolve things, but it didn't really work out very well, and it's just kind of weird, and I don't know, it just didn't... It's just not right. Again, they try to give a reason for Akito, but, like, that's not even close to accurate to what Akito's reasonings for why Akito acts the way Akito does. It's not even close. Definitely not even close. But, so for me, like, there's a lot of things that I just don't like about the 2001 series. In fact, that ending, there's a couple of other things throughout the entirety of the 2001 series that I have issues with, but the ending is one of the biggest things, and is part of the reason why I have such a weird love-hate relationship with the 2001 series, and why I was so much happy I was so happy when they announced the remake, and initially was a little bit worried because I didn't know how they were going to handle it. But of course, over the course of the 2019 series, I was like, no, it'll be fine because I saw how the rest of it was being handled, so I was really glad about that. Um, but like for me, I understand that some people actually like the more dramatic way that they did it in the 2001 version, and like having all the characters to show. I understand that some people like that, but for me, it's just like, to me, it felt like they were just trying to like grab as many or gather as many main characters that they could in order to like in order to like you know amp up the drama and the emotional stuff. And so who were the main core characters that they brought into the series, that brought into the 2001 series during this finale, that weren't there? Well, they added in Shigure, they added in Akito, they added in Yuki, and they added in Nuo and Hana. That's like the main core cast right there. They added them in even though they're not supposed to be there. And so it's just kind of weird. And then on top of that, the other thing that I really don't like is the fact that pretty much the whole entire thing of the one thing that they removed, the one absolutely like key point or key thing about um, the 2019 episode and manga is when Toru, who has already been physically hurt and in a lot of ways verbally hurt from what from what Kiyo has done to her with the scratching her and telling her to go away, is when she initially walks away, but then she stops and she turns around and she makes the decision to go back to him, which is not at all what it's like in the 2001 version. Because if you kind of paid attention a little bit as I was going through this, is that every single person, every single main character that Toru ran into was constantly telling her, you have to go back and confront Kiyo. You have to talk to Kiyo. Even, in a sense, Akito was doing that, but more of in a, like a challenging way. And it's just like, so it turned it into, instead of it being Toru's decision and Toru going, no, I need to bring him back. I know he's going to run away and he's never going to come back if I don't do something. And it's her conviction, it's her decision to do that. Instead, it turned into everyone else telling her to do it. And so you got Akito kind of halfway trying to like manipulate her kind of into doing it. Shigure begging her to do it. Hana telling her, I don't know what it is you have to do, but you have to go and do it. You're the only one who can. And then Yuki showing up, and Toru finally does show up to confront Kiyo in the 2001 version, but then, even then she still doesn't confront him. She just sits there in front of him, like, with the deadpan eyes, like, depressed and in despair. And then it's Yuki who has to snap her out of it, saying, you gotta tell him what you think, you gotta tell him how you feel right now. And so it doesn't really feel as genuine. It almost, to me, I always felt like it was kind of a betrayal of Toru's character, and that she's not that way. She's the type of person, she's not the type of person who is just going to take orders from everyone without question. She has a stubborn side to her that won't let her give up on people that easily, even if it means that the person hurt them. You know, yes, she can get depressed and discouraged, especially when someone she knows and cares about refuses to take the help that she's giving, and especially when they wind up hurting her. But she's not going to give up that easily. And having her be the one that's like super depressed and in despair, and I think one of the things I remember her saying in the 2001 version was that, when she was when she was crying on her mother's grave, being like, oh, I don't fit in with that family, I don't belong there, and it's just not the right place for me anymore. And it's just like, that's not Toru. And it was just so frustrating. It was just so frustrating that they did it, that they messed it up that way. Not including the second half of that episode, of that final episode of the 2001 series, where they completely had that anime original ending, because, and just I should have said this earlier, but I'm going to say it now. That is not going to happen. The entire sequence where Toru meets Akito and, like, finds out the reason why Akito. That does not happen there. In fact, the entire sequence does not happen at all. Akito's is not going to die young. That is not what this is about. Nor does he bear the brunt of the Zodiac curse. Nor did it. None of that is the reason for Akito's actions. That is completely anime original, and it's just like, it's so frustrating. But at the same time, now that I've gotten my little rant done with the 2001 series, I am so happy. So happy with the remake. It has been so much better, and I am just so glad it finally got the true form arc finally got the justice it deserved, because it really needed it. And this is, it's so good. I'm just so happy. But it'll be fun. It's so good. It's gonna be interesting. Next episode really should just be like the aftermath stuff. You'll probably see a little bit, if you've watched the 2001 series, you probably are going to be seeing a little bit. You should be knowing what that flashback I'm talking about, because that should be in the next episode. But it should be the aftermath stuff, which the 2001 series didn't have. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And then it'll be the last episode, which will be sad. At least until we get season 2, which is good. But that's really about it. I know it's been a long video. It's like 30 minutes long, but I had to, okay? It was important. Stuff is important. I had to talk about it. I've been wanting to talk about this for so long, and finally I get the opportunity to. Anyway, that's really about it. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.